Joining us for further commentary now is former war correspondent and filmmaker Michael Ware. Michael, before we get to the events of the impeachment over the past few days, and John Bolton in particular, let's have a chat about Donald Trump's peace plan. A lot of criticism has come out saying that it is too pro-Israel, particularly bearing in mind that there was no Palestinian input or even visibility during that announcement yesterday.
Well, yeah, that's right, Peter. I mean, the grave concern is that this so-called peace plan is stillborn, that it's dead in the water before it even begins. For some of the reasons that you expressed, the Palestinians had no input or exposure to the plan before it was released. What you've got to have a look at is what's really on offer here. Now, every other American brokered peace plan has begun with the premise that there would be a return to the Israeli borders that stood before the 1967 Six-Day War. Because in that war, that's when Israel seized the West Bank from Jordan and seized Gaza from Egypt. So until now, the consensus has been that we would move back to some kind of similar position like that. But if you have a look at the map that the White House has released for their proposal, there's no solid Palestinian state on offer. In fact, it's a very complex and convoluted archipelago of a state with all these tiny enclaves. And what it also does is it maintains the Israeli position, where the Israelis have been building what the international community has been calling illegal settlements in Palestinian territory. Now, this deal would keep those settlements there and requires the Palestinians to just accept that.
Yeah.
So, and their capital would not be in East Jerusalem, it would be on the outskirts of Jerusalem. So President Trump signaled this as the deal of the century, whereas Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas called it the slap of the century.
Yeah, and we just, as Michael just referred to on that graphic, if we can bring it up again, you can see that it's so blotchy, the sort of land that the Palestinians are getting. I mean, there's just no way that you're going to be able to control that. There it is there. And also, there's a vote on Sunday, Michael, to annex 30% of the West Bank. So why on earth would the Palestinians go for that?
Exactly. So, in fact, this deal offers the Palestinians far less than any previous deals that have been put on the table. And yes, the Israeli parliament is going to vote to annex 30% of the West Bank. You see, according to the Israeli military, there's more Arabs and Palestinians living in Israeli territory than there are Jews. So they're terrified that the Palestinians are going to overpopulate them. So that's also at the heart of this agreement, which maintains the Israeli status quo. One of the other interesting things, of course, is that what a lot of the critics are saying is they're questioning the timing of the release of this 181-page plan.
Impeachment.
One is, yes, that the US president is currently on trial and has been impeached and is on trial for abuse of power, and Prime Minister Netanyahu from Israel, who was with him in the White House, has just this week been indicted on corruption charges, and both men face an election later this year. So people are really questioning the timing and the true substance of this deal.
Yep, and we will watch that cabinet vote on Sunday. That'll be Monday morning on our show. So if that does go through, I mentioned that I would suggest that all kind of problems are going to kick off. But you did mention impeachment there, Michael. Let's have just a brief chat about that. What's your view of things just in the past 7 days since we last spoke, and in particular these claims by John Bolton that there was perhaps a deal to withhold money from Ukraine in exchange for, dirt against Joe Biden?
Well, it does seem that America is still watching. I can tell you that even today I switched on to CBS and I was unable to watch Bolden the Beautiful, not that I'd want to, because the impeachment trial was being played live. So we're at the stage now where the prosecution, or the House of Representatives, has laid out the case that President Trump traded American national security interests by withholding military aid to Ukraine, a friend and ally who's currently in a hot war with Russia, because he wanted political dirt on his past and present political rivals, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. So that's where we are on the matter. So the prosecution was laid out, then the White House laid out their defence, and right now, as we speak, senators are asking questions in the Senate of both sides. They've got 2 days in which to seek clarification on any points that concern them. Now, the question comes down to, at this point, whether we're going to have witnesses. And this is where we come to former National Security Advisor John Bolton. John Bolton has written a book, and there's a manuscript out there. And in that manuscript, President Trump's most past recent National Security Advisor claims that both he, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of Defense nearly a dozen times urged President Trump to release the military aid to Ukraine. Bolton then claims that in August, President Trump said to him directly he'd prefer not to release the aid until he gets materials from the Ukrainians on Clinton and on Biden. So that is a bit of a bombshell declaration. So what's going to happen is, after the questions and answers that are taking place today and tomorrow, there's going to be a vote, most likely Friday, to see whether the Senate is going to call for witnesses. Now, that's going to come down to just 4 Republican votes. And already 2 Republicans have indicated they want to hear witnesses. They want to hear from John Bolton. The rest of the Republican Party, however, is saying, well, even if we hear from Bolton, it's not going to change our minds. Even if what Bolton says is true. Even if the president did do all these things, we just don't think it rises to impeachment. They argue it must be a criminal offence, whereas the Democrats are arguing that this is the exact kind of abuse of power that the Founding Fathers had in mind by allowing foreign interference in an American election when they wrote the Constitution.
Yeah.
Michael, as always, good to talk. We got to go, but great chat, and we'll talk to you again next week.